Hey guys.
Hey, one of the things that I wanted to talk about is I've been thinking about the light of Christ a lot. And I remember I I really enjoy dancing and it gets me out of my thinking mode and I've enjoyed dancing since I was young. And it was the only thing that I felt free and felt like I was myself and just felt flowing was when I would dance. I don't know why, but I just really dancing just helps me get out of that thinking mind that a lot of times I'm finding that my thinking really distracts me from being connected to God. So I start thinking about different things or I get busy or whatever it is. That's what I found in my experience. I like to experiment on things and I've noticed that my thinking a lot of times will distract me. Now, sometimes my thinking brain helps me and I like that. I think I'm gonna go inside because the wind. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just needed to come in because the wind was blowing so hard. Anyhow, I was reflecting back one day about what has made me feel the light of Christ. And there is definitely, I've found prayer, sincere prayer, and listening afterwards gets me in that line of Christ, that line of communication with God, the light of Christ, his power and light and love. Second is reading his word, which is the scriptures, with real intent. Third is going to the temple. The temple, I feel the spirit when I am at the temple a lot. And then another thing is I was remembering how I used to do Qigong and Tai Chi when I was young. And I remember also how much dancing really helped me get out of that thinking brain and into the feeling and being united within myself. Like that's when I felt the most like me, free of all of the thoughts that I had that were kind of in some ways binding me, like kind of bondage. I was free and able to feel the spirit. Music sometimes does that as well for me. So I was thinking about how it's important to use your thinking brain. Like pondering is when I feel like my thinking brain is really important in that moment of pondering on truths or things or whatnot. That is helpful. Pondering upon God's word. When I'm in that thinking brain, that keeps me connected in the light of Christ when I'm thinking about God. I found that a lot of my other thinking, when I'm in my thinking brain, I'm just not feeling that connection. So, but when I did Qigong and Tai Chi, I remember how I could feel the light of Christ so much. It was so amazing. I could feel it inside of me and around me. I just thought, oh my goodness, that's right. I remember Qigong and Tai Chi and dancing really made me feel. I could feel myself. I could feel what was going around me. I could feel the light of Christ. I just also remembered how important it is to be balanced. So, balancing spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. Like when we're only doing one, then the rest suffer, and our bodies and our minds and our spirit are all connected. They're all in one. Okay. And so it's really important that we balance all those and take care of all of those. So I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm in my thinking brain a lot during the day. That's why I have been setting an alarm to connect with God every hour because I'm in my brain a lot. And I find that I disconnect with him when I'm in my brain a lot, thinking about, not him. Anyway, so I was thinking about how it's also really important to have your thinking brain, but it's really important also to learn to quiet your thinking brain. And Qigong did that for me so well. So what I've been doing is the kids and I have been praying and reading our scriptures individually for about 10 or so minutes and then discussing what we read afterwards with each other. We've been doing that for years in the morning. But what I've implemented is Qigong with my kids, and the reason why I'm doing that is I want to help my kids be able to learn how to connect with the light of Christ, to learn how to quiet the thinking brain and get into feeling. What are you feeling inside? What are you feeling around you? Are you feeling, and sometimes our thoughts will come up and we can recognize those thoughts. And sometimes it's just, oh, I'm feeling kind of sad, or, oh, I'm feeling kind of hungry, or whatever it is. Like, really, I'm feeling tense muscles. And so part of that Qigong is I'm teaching them to also deep breathe. So deep breathe through the nose and out through the mouth. And I've been teaching them how to, when you feel like a tense muscle, breathing in, and then as you're breathing out slowly, picture your muscle just melting or loosening up. And it's amazing how it totally will. It will loosen up as you deep breathe. So I'm teaching them to deep breathe, and I'm teaching them to do the movements. And I said, for me, the reason why I want to do Qigong every day too is I want you guys to learn how to quiet your mind and get into the feeling. I want you to learn how to get into that light of Christ and feel God's light, power, and love, so that you can feel the Holy Ghost. So that's a big purpose of why I want to do that. And then I've also talked to them about how Qigong might not be the thing that makes you be able to connect into the light of Christ, into God's power and communication. It might be art, and some of my kids love to do art. I like to do art. It might be being outside in nature. It might be holding your pets. It might be connecting with Mother Earth. It might be connecting with animals outside. It might be going on a walk. It might be music. Whatever it is, it might be a sport, whatever it is that gets you out of your thinking brain and into feeling what's inside of you and feeling what's around you. That's what I'm wanting. That's what we need to learn how to do. That's how we keep the balance between the thinking and the feeling. And so that's kind of what the reasonings as to why I'm doing the Qigong. And I've told my kids, and Qigong might not be, but Qigong is good in the way that as long as you're striving to quiet your mind and deep breathe through the movements, then you're learning how to feel inside of you. And I love how Elder Christensen talked about being united within yourself and being united with God, and how important that is. And so that's part of the reason that I'm doing this Qigong, is so that my kids can learn to quiet their minds, so that they can really get into who they are. I think of the feelings part of our life is things that I've been learning through podcasts, through life coaches, through therapists that my husband and I listen to on podcasts, or things that I've read, books that I've read. A book that I'm reading right now is it's called When the Body Says No. And it talks about, and the things that I've learned about along with this book, is how important it is that we don't deny the feelings that we have, that we don't repress our feelings. Because if you think about it, they're like kind of indications. There may be warning indications. And our bodies are our vessels for our spirits, or our temples to our spirits. And just like a car, how we get into a car, if the car will indicate when there's a problem, like we need to change the oil, or we need to look at the engine or the coolant or whatever it is, the tires or whatnot, it will send out a warning. It will send out an indication that something needs to be looked at. And if we ignore those indications from our car will slowly decline, and our engine could blow up, our whatever, our car will get damaged. It will be run down if we don't listen to those indications and ignore those. Then that's going to be detriment to our car. And I see it that same way with our bodies and our feelings. Like, our feelings are an indication that something is not right, and if it's a negative feeling. And that we need to listen to that those feelings need to be heard, and that we need to look at what's going on. Is it something inside of me, or is it something going on outside of me? And if we don't listen to that, if we repress it, or we ignore it, or we brush it under the rug, or whatever that we do, those things from this book that I'm learning, if we repress those feelings into ourselves, then eventually our bodies are going to start depleting. So we'll get like autoimmune diseases, or we'll get cancer or Crohn's disease or whatever. Our bodies will show an indication that we were just ignoring the things that needed to be looked at, just like our car will eventually fail and decline if we don't listen to those indications. I think it's really important that we learn to listen to our bodies, listen to our feelings, listen to those indications, so that we can problem solve, so that we can do the things that problem solve outside of us or problem solve inside of us. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, I mean, there's things that are happening on the outside of us sometimes, that we don't have a lot of control, but we do have control over ourselves and how we act and think, and right? And so one of the things that I've learned with being the indications that are something's not right inside of us is when we're feeling down or whatever, I'm finding is that our thoughts usually have a story behind them. And our thoughts are so powerful and so important to look at. Our thoughts are huge because our thoughts drive our feelings. So if we're having negative feelings, sometimes those negative feelings are a cause of something from outside of us. But I'm finding a lot of times those feelings are coming from inside of us because of the stories we have told ourselves. And a lot of times those stories that we've been telling ourselves are from childhood, things that happened to us that were hard for us when we were kids. And I'm just going to use the example of what if you were bullied, okay? So if you were bullied as a kid, then bullying could have, as soon as we have certain thoughts, we make these stories up about ourselves a lot of times, or about other people, right? So when we have these thoughts, let's just say for ourselves, like, oh, I must be unlovable because this person's treating me terribly, and there must be something wrong with me. I must be unlovable. So being treated like this is because I'm not doing something right. And then we go into, well, I better please everybody. I just know I became a people pleaser. And because I thought I had to earn the love, I had to earn my worthiness and whatnot. See, these are some of the stories that as a child we can come up with, and then we grow up with these stories thinking, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy of love, there's something wrong with me. And we have these stories that, see, there's evidence to show that I'm not worthy of love, which is not true. But we have these stories because of what happened to us. We make up these stories, even though they might, a lot of times aren't true. So what I'm learning is it's really important that when we look at our feelings, that we look at, well, what's really happening here? What am I really feeling? And why am I feeling this? Then we can be like, oh, well, this happened, and this person said this, and so it made me feel shameful, or made me feel like I'm not worthy of friendship or love. And then if you trace it back, well, how come, but that's not true. So how come I'm thinking that? And then you can usually revert it back to childhood. And when we go back to that childhood experience, we are now adults, and we know better. We have a lot more knowledge, and we can say to that child within us, you didn't deserve that. You didn't deserve to be treated like that. And you can even be your own superhero, and because your brain has a hard time detecting what's real and what isn't. So you could update that story from your childhood and be your own hero and be like, you know what? That's not okay for you to say to me. And you could stand up for yourself. You could say, hey, why don't you stand up for yourself? Or you could be the adult coming in and saying, hey, don't treat that girl that way. That's not okay. And be your own hero and update those stories, and then tell yourself and continue to tell yourself, I am lovable and I'm worthy of love. So it's just really, I'm finding and learning how important it is that we don't repress those feelings, because they can either bring on mental disorders or physical problems. And it makes sense because that's how it works with a vehicle. If we don't take care of it, maintain it, keep it balanced, and don't listen and ignore the indications that it's saying, hey, there's a problem here, we need to look at it and fix it, then mentally or physically there's going to be issues within us. And when there's issues, then that light of Christ can't flow through us. And when we're not honest in how we are truly feeling, how can we be honest with others? It's really important that we are honest with ourselves, with God, and others. And if we're denying those feelings, then we're not facing them, then we're also stifling growth within ourselves. And outside of ourselves, we're stifling that there could be growth with other people too, like problem solving and making it good for everybody. Anyways, so that's kind of the things that I'm learning about with thoughts and feelings, how important thoughts are and how we can update those thoughts. And I also kind of look at it like Jesus, he would at times, when he was in the wilderness for 40 days, fasting for 40 days, Satan came to him and he heard him out. And then once he heard what Satan had to say to him, then he problem solved, quoted scriptures. And then there's times where he just rebuked him and didn't even listen to him. And I find that I do that with my feelings. So especially for the things that I need to update or new things that come up, feelings or whatever problems that have happened inside of me or outside of me, I usually try and hear them out, let them be heard. And then once I've allowed them to be heard and I say, oh, I see the problem, I see what needs to be done, then I'm free of that. I don't have to feel those feelings anymore. And I'm free to choose to think differently so that I can have different feelings. Or if that thinking is good and working, then I can keep that good. Or I can update the good feelings and make them even better. So I find that thinking and feeling are very correlated, and I know that thinking is what a lot of times creates our feelings. So if we don't like how we're feeling, we need to figure out why we're feeling that and problem solve within ourselves or outside of ourselves. And then we can truly be free and make the better choices and get a little bit better. So I really like that. And we can be in line with the light of Christ and with the Spirit. That's kind of the things that I wanted to talk about. Was I'm trying to get our family to be balanced. So physically, I bought a veggie tray, fruit tray thing, and I'm finding that it works really good for my kids and I to snack on throughout the day, is have a dip for us to just pull out that veggie tray and eat some fresh vegetables and fruits. And it's been amazing. And then physically, we're doing the Qigong, which is like a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, all-in-one kind of thing. But it's kind of a slow exercise. But I'm also wanting to get outside and walk more with me and the kids. And then mentally, we are just doing schooling or reading. So there's all sorts of things that we're doing to try and balance all of those, the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional parts of us, and keep them kind of balanced and maintained so that we can also be in line with the light of Christ. Because what affects us when our physical health affects us, it can affect us mentally, when our spiritual health is affecting us, it can affect us physically and mentally, and so on and so forth. It's all connected. And so to keep us healthy, I feel like it's really important to keep all of them balanced and maintained, and not going to extremes. Like anything extreme is going to become bad or harmful. Even if it's positive, it can be harmful or bad. So it's really important that we kind of try and keep it balanced and problem solve. So I hope that this was helpful to some of you guys. I don't want you to feel like you have to do the same thing as me. I'm just throwing it out there that maybe it might be something helpful for you. And especially with the whole thinking and feeling, I think it's really important that we understand that we do have control somewhat over how we feel. So feelings come, and a lot of times they come through how we're thinking, what we're thinking. And our thinking, we have total control over that. We have control on how and what we think about. And so empowering to me to know that I can change my thinking, which will change my thoughts and will change the actions and results that happen in my life. And what a blessing. I did not know this. I did not have this knowledge until a couple of years ago when I have life coaches. And I did not understand that our thinking drives our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions, and our actions create our results. And what a blessing it has been in my life to realize that my thinking, I have total control over my thinking. I don't have control over anybody else, but I do have control over what I think and what I do. And so it's been so helpful to know and to learn boundaries, which is thinking, what do I need to do to protect myself? And then creating that, a healthy boundary. Anyways, thinking is so powerful, and that's what we have control over. And we can update the stories we had from even childhood that will create better results in our life now and in the future. So I really hope that helps somebody. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope that you guys can find ways, and please tell me ways that you're finding to be able to line up with the light of Christ so you can feel the Spirit and how you're feeling the Spirit. And let's all help each other be able to get into that God's light and power so that we can be God pleasers. So I hope that this is helpful, and I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.